Hi, welcome to Monochrome tutorial basic tips and tricks. In this tutorial we will look at some of the methods that I have used when creating monochromatic illustrations. I'll show you some basics of monochromatic work in Clip Studio Paint, but keep in mind that these are guidelines and you may have other methods that you can try out. I hope by the end of this list you'll have a better idea on how monochromatic themes work, as well as more tricks in producing these pieces. Let's get started. Once you have your concept fleshed out in a sketch, the next step is to ink it. As you'll see here, I have a sketch and I am working through it, as I felt that this would be a much easier time for you to kind of get the concept and see me work. It'll give you a base for a much clearer conception of your piece, and from here you'll consider the next steps in your design. What design and details appeal to you? This could be anywhere from simple lines produced, playing with line weights, varying shades and depths, to even using textures and patterns to add that extra little flair to your artwork. One tool setting has helped me immensely with my line work and a shortened cleanup time when I illustrate. I cannot tell you how many times and how many hours I have worked through these sort of things, and always messing up and making mistakes with my lines and making them a little messy. They even are still a little messy to this day, but they are much better now. Both brush and layer options that I am talking about is vector. Vector layers and vector eraser provide a quick method of keeping things tidy in an efficient amount of time. To start working with vector layers, you just want to hover over the second bottom left icon that says New Vector Layer. Begin your line work as you would. If you run into an issue and wish to only erase a small section rather than trying to fight everything, click your eraser, select the Vector Eraser option, then click the second tab at the top to look at the advanced settings. Here, find the Vector Eraser section. You'll see that there are three icons that all look like variations of the letter T, and the one you'll want to have selected is the middle one out of the options, the one that specifically looks like a T, not the little person or kind of like a right angle. You'll want that one. Now that you have this selected, go back to your piece, run your eraser over the section you want to erase, and boom, it should remove only that piece. One little tip in mind I will give you when working with something like this, though as amazing as it is, you'll want to be sure that you have a cross section, so when you are essentially cutting that piece out, it will only take that piece. Otherwise, you may run into, well, basically erasing your whole line. So keep that in mind. Once I have my line work, before anything else, it's a good rule of thumb to consider where your light source is. This is one of the many things that will determine a piece with more depth to it, as opposed to a 2D monochrome work. Generally, there won't be much need for any sort of shading, shadows, lighting. Only sometimes, depending on the piece. You'll also want to keep in mind what sort of mood that you want for your piece. Are you wanting something intense or soft or lighthearted or dark? Because this is also going to basically affect what and how your piece is going to come out, and how the lighting and the shadows are going to essentially react. Also, never ever feel bad about looking up reference images, especially things from real life, still life, clothing, even stuff that you're looking at around your house, around your desk, what have you. There's always a light source that's dropping down on them. These references are literally your best friend at this point to better understanding these sort of things and this sort of depth in an art piece and replicating that. So, especially when it concerns things like soft textures, patterns, and even metallic textures. So give it a try. Look at and find any reference pieces, pictures, photos. It's something that will also give you a chance to practice. Monochromatic palettes have a slight difference compared to full color palettes of a more chromatic term, from reds, orange, yellows, what have you. Monochromatic palettes are desaturated. They lack that color, so you're going to deal with something that's a little bit more challenging. There are two methods that I take when considering a palette. I'll either work on a scale between black and white and gauge what appeals to me the most as to what I want in a lighter color or what I want in a darker color, or even something in between. Or my second method, if I have a reference image to that which I am drawing, I will desaturate the source and eyedrop the colors from it for my palette. To desaturate an image in Clip Studio, you'll want to take your piece, click Edit, Tonal Correction, Hue, Saturation, and Luminosity, and drag the saturation section to -100. This will desaturate your image and will give you that grayscale color palette that you will need for your monochromatic piece. You will also notice that some of the colors may end up muddy if they're within the same spectrum of color. Keep this in mind because you will want to know about this later. Highlights usually are the lighting on the various materials, whether it be hair or metals. They are the smaller little details that you can add to a piece to really make it shine. There's also a possibility of highlights coming from something like reflected light and water, and so forth. Generally, they'll follow the same direction as the light source that you've created, and rarely may reflect on other sides of a figure or an object, depending on the depth and intensity of light and shadow. With a figure, they may have the light shining on one side, but it could also be streaming a little bit to their back, for example, which you may not see in the image, but to give that more the 3D effect, it could potentially be shining through, so you might consider it. Backgrounds add further depth to an image, and personally I feel it's up to your discretion if you feel it will add to your piece. If there's a particular scene that you're wanting to work with, if you feel that putting them in an environment will add to the piece, then more power to you. That could make an astounding piece. I will say though, due to the difference in color palette and how desaturated and potentially muddy it may look, I will suggest varying light intensities between layers to prevent mistakes of making the image look noisy or unreadable. You wouldn't want that for your piece, as it will make it difficult for the person viewing it to be able to read it properly, and all that they will see is just this mishmash of shapes and things, even with the most clearest of image. And, sometimes complex backgrounds aren't needed. Sometimes just a simple shape or a design will work just fine. Thank you for taking a chance to look at my video, and I hope that it has given you a better understanding on how to begin creating monochromatic illustrations and designs. And I can't wait to see what you do. Never, ever be afraid to experiment. Cheers, and may the monochromatic be with you.